and Mike Beer in front of the Jocks Room at beautiful Saratoga, getting ready for the Belmont Stakes. Yes, the Belmont Stakes this year is at Saratoga, and instead of being run at 1.5 miles, it'll be run at 1.25 miles as race number 12 on Saturday. And if you comment and subscribe, comment on this video, you'll be entered for an opportunity to win one of 3 of these sporty DRF caps. I knew I could do it, Beersy. I told you I could.
Very proud of you.
Let's take a look at the field for the Belmont. Grade 1, $2 million. 1.25 miles is the purse. You've got the Preakness winner. You've got the Derby winner.
Yep.
And neither will be favored.
Yeah, and it's kind of rare these days to get the Derby and the Preakness winner back in the Belmont Stakes if one of them didn't win both legs. Listen, we'll see what happens here. It's not the strongest field in the world, but it's a little bit of a wrinkle here, going 1.25 miles instead of 1.5 miles.
It certainly is. There does seem to be a little bit of speed in this race. Seize the Gray, the gate-to-wire winner of the Preakness, drew inside. You have to think he's going to be forwardly placed. How do you ride Mindframe, the number 10, breaking from the far outside? He does have natural speed. It's only his 3rd start.
He's got a long run to the first turn as well, so it feels like being drawn outside is to his advantage, Dan. He's got plenty of speed. I expect him to go forward in here. I doubt that Irad Ortiz is going to come out of there gunning for the early lead, but he'll be forward in here. The key to the pace is Dornoch, the number 6. He hasn't made the lead in either of his last 2 starts. I think that's where they want to be with him.
He had no chance breaking from the rail in the Derby to get that lead after an awkward break, and you're right, he's at his best when he goes to the front. Expect him to be aggressively ridden going into the first turn here at the Spa. We'll start things off with the Preakness winner, Seize the Gray. We turn into the stretch of the Preakness, and he was traveling very comfortably. The other speed, imagination, decided to let this horse go. He got a very nice front end ride, rated beautifully, spurted clear at just the right time, getting a little tired drifting out in the lane, but a good performance nonetheless.
Don't take anything away from him for this performance. They took their shot in this race off of a pretty nice performance going the 1-turn mile on Derby Day. And this horse ran the race that he needed to race to run to win there, Dan. He got loose on the lead, yes. So he had all the best of it in there over a wet track where Mystic Dan and Catching Freedom just couldn't quite get to him late. He ran fine in there. He's going to be a good price in here if you're a believer. I'm not a believer.
Resilience is the number 2. He won the Wood Memorial 2 starts back. That was his final prep for the Kentucky Derby. And all in all, he ran quite well in the Derby. He made a menacing move, kind of into the teeth of a fairly hot pace, and then he tired in the end. When you watch that race, my first impression was maybe 1.25 miles is a little far. Belmont's no dummy. He could easily have turned this horse back for a race like the Woody Stevens. He's going to run here.
Yeah, I don't mind them taking one more. So I'm kind of with you. I sort of felt like maybe the 1.25 miles isn't exactly what he wants, but I don't mind him taking one more shot at it here. Again, it's not, at least at this stage of the game, it's not the strongest crop of 3-year-olds. I think he's as talented as just about anybody in here. We'll see if he gets the distance a little bit better this time. I want to at least give him a little bit of leeway for the Derby because he did make a strong, wide move on the turn before he flattened out.
Here's the Derby winner, the number 3, Mystic Dan, and I guess in the Preakness he proved that Derby was no fluke. Yes, he did have a very good trip in the Derby. Saved ground, was able to bull his way through, but he was also close to a fast pace, and he was game to hold off 2 quality closers. In the Preakness, he got the trip he wanted. He tracked in behind the leader, he got to the outside. He just wasn't good enough at the end. I like that he's in here. His last workout was in company, it looked like, with a horse named Gould's Gold. He's a solid multiple stakes placed horse. It looked like Mystic Dan dusted him.
Okay, I mean, listen, I'm sure that he's training well. Otherwise, I don't think he would be here. I guess the question for the Preakness would be, because I'm kind of with you, Dan. I mean, that's the trip that you wanted for this horse. You're really not supposed to use the wet track as an excuse for him. So what is his excuse to not run down a horse like Seize the Gray on the lead in there? I didn't see it for him. And now they're going to come back on only 3 weeks more rest. So I'm assuming he's doing really well here. You know that his best race gives him a real chance. I was way too disappointed in his Preakness to want to bet him back here, but I'm glad that he's running.
We're expecting a wet track perhaps on Saturday. Rain expected Thursday, Friday, Saturday here at the Spa. That could help Mystic Dan, who might cruise into a spot in behind the leaders. The Wine Steward is the number 4, a very likable New York bred. Started off his career with 3 straight wins, and now he's coming into this race off 3 straight runner-up performances, close runner-up efforts. Even though this guy's dropped 3 races by less than a length, I think he's a little fighter.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a little bit of a fighter. I think you have to be really concerned with more distance for this horse now because I'm not sure that he really likes it. And it's not like you're going to look at any one of those last 3 losses, Dan, and be super disappointed in this horse. He ran really well all 3 times, but he had no excuses at the end of the day. And now you're talking about a horse who is 3 for 6 with 3 seconds. And all 3 of his wins are sprinting, and all 3 of his losses are going long without excuse.
All 3 wins, you're right. Sprinting, one of them came at Saratoga. He likes the track here.
Yeah.
It's his 3rd start of the year, but the distance is a big question mark. Here's Antiquarian beating the Wine Steward in the Peter Pan last time out, going 1 mile and 1/8 at Aqueduct. And Antiquarian's really only bad race was in the Louisiana Derby, a race where he threw a fit before the start, broke through the gate, and I think that cost him against some nice horses like Catching Freedom and Honor Marie. The Peter Pan, a good, solid professional effort, prompting 3 wide and grinding it out. This guy wants distance.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. It seems like when you watch him run, he's sort of got that one gear running style that plays in longer distance races. I wasn't disappointed in his Louisiana Derby at all, even though he wasn't around at the end. You mentioned the trouble before the race. He was also very wide on the final turn. I thought he ran okay. I guess my real issue with him, Dan, is I just don't love the Peter Pan as a race. He ran fine in there. I'll take nothing away from him. He's very lightly raced. The added distance could help him too. He'll be a fair price in there. All these things are things that you want to take into consideration with him. I'm just not a big fan.
So number 6, Dornoch, had a lot of hype behind him last year at 2, of course, being the younger brother to Kentucky Derby winner Mage. And he did some very good things at 2, denying our Belmont Stakes morning line favorite, Sierra Leone, in the Remsen, a very game performance. He began his 3-year-old season in the Fountain of Youth, and it was a water-down race. A lot of scratches the day of the race, and he wasn't very impressive winning. His last 2 races, if you want to say, okay, they took him off the pace and it didn't work out. Certainly in the Derby, the trip, you just throw the line through the race.
Yeah.
What about the Bluegrass, though? He was rated, he had no punch.
Didn't like his Bluegrass at all. I mean, it's the first time that they really didn't try to go to the lead with them. And he just didn't run that well in that race. I didn't see a trip excuse for him. It just wasn't a good performance. They pressed on to the Derby. That's the race where I feel like, Dan, if you liked this horse, and he was a good 2-year-old, and if you don't really care about the Fountain of Youth, which wasn't a stellar performance, but he did what he had to do. So if you liked this horse on the way into the Derby, you can just give him an excuse for that one. He didn't get out of the gate well. Mystic Dan got in front of him early, and this horse just lost all position in there. I don't care about that race. I just don't like anything he's done as a 3-year-old so far.
And given an alert break, he's going to be
on the front
or near the lead. Todd Pletcher, of course, won't have champion 2-year-old Fierceness in here, but he has 3 others, including a maiden, the number 7 Protective, who has run well against winners. 3rd in the Wood Memorial, 2 starts back behind Resilience. 3rd last time out behind Antiquarian. This is a horse that I think is adaptable to the pace. We still have to find out if he's good enough, but I still don't think he's reached his full potential just yet.
I don't think he has either. I'm a little surprised they're pressing on to the Belmont Stakes with him. I mean, it wouldn't hurt them to take a step back with this horse and let him get his confidence up with a sort of an easy win. He's certainly talented, though, Dan. I mean, his Wood Memorial was good. You can go back and watch that Peter Pan and judge for yourself. It felt like Irad, who was riding that day, stayed over behind horses in the stretch. He was waiting for a seam that never came, and he ultimately just had to alter out behind the eventual winner, and he was never going to catch him at that point. I thought that performance was okay. I don't want to bet him in this race, but if I was taking one horse out of the Peter Pan, it would be Protective.
Honor Marie, a graded stakes winner, is a 2-year-old going 2 turns, ran 2nd in the Louisiana Derby. Kind of a race that might have fallen apart just a little bit at the end. He was making up some ground, but was no match for the winner, the solid Catching Freedom. This horse did not have a good trip in the Derby.
He had plenty of excuses in the Kentucky Derby, to be sure, and he was actually very game in that race once it was time for him to start running, but he just got bumped hard at the start and then just sort of pinballed around, and he wound up way back off the pace. After that, I thought he did some good things. He's another horse where I just sort of feel like if you liked him on the way into the Derby, there's no reason to get off him now, and you give him one more chance in this race. This race not being 1.5 miles probably actually helps this horse too. I personally didn't like him going into the Derby, so I'm not betting him here, but he should be a good price.
Sierra Leone is your morning line favorite. The number 9 went into the Derby as one of the ones after taking the Risen Star and the Bluegrass and taking both in pretty eye-catching style. His Derby speaks for itself. He was beaten a nose. It was an in-out trip. He came with a wide run. He was banging around with Forever Young in the stretch. He just couldn't get to Mystic Dan, fell a nose shy. He's still a little bit green. He's still going to lug in during the stretch drive. Chad Brown's going to try a new bit and hope to correct that.
You'd like to see him correct that at some point, just go in a straight line through the stretch. He's really talented. Every one of his races to this point in his career is really, really good. And if he just shows up here, it feels like the 1.25 miles we saw in the Derby. It's not a real issue for this horse, Dan. If he gets the right trip, shows up and runs his best race, he's way the horse to beat.
And he should get plenty of pace to attack. I think it's fair to argue that the 10 Mindframe is the most naturally talented horse in this race, at least what we've seen from his first 2 starts. His debut going 7/8 at Gulfstream, just a runaway blowout victory. And then on Derby weekend, a first level allowance race, Irad Ortiz wasn't fooling around.
No.
He knew he was on the best horse. He went to the front, he set a very rated pace, and he sprinted on home. He is a very talented horse.
Yes.
This is a huge ask. 3rd lifetime start, far outside post, first time against any sort of stakes competition.
Not easy to just step into a grade 1 race like the Belmont Stakes and career start number 3, but I guess if you're going to try it, you try it with a horse who has this kind of natural ability. You can see it when you watch him run. His debut was super impressive. He had all the best of it in that Churchill race on Derby weekend. Absolutely loose on the lead. They never challenged him. He also never gave that field a chance. This horse can run.
This horse can run. It'll be interesting to see what sort of trip he pulls from the far outside post. I would expect him to be close to the pace while outside and in the clear. Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. And of course, comment to enter and win an opportunity for one of 3 of those Daily Racing Form caps that I so beautifully caught in the intro. Top pick time, Mike. I think we agree on this one.
Yeah, I think we're both going to go with Sierra Leone here. We're kind of chalking it out, but it just feels like the right race for him, and maybe it's just his time. I'm very interested to see what Mindframe does. Don't really want to bet him here, Dan. Won't be surprised when he wins. I couldn't go back to Resilience. I really wanted to.
I know you're a big fan of Resilience, and I love the fact that Mott's running it here, showing a lot of confidence. I think Mystic Dan's going to run his race. I do think Sierra Leone, though, is the horse that could kick these in the down in the stretch. He just looks like the kind of horse that probably benefits from the extra time from the Kentucky Derby, and I'm hoping this new bit gives him a little more bite in the stretch. We're both going Sierra Leone in the Belmont, the 3rd jewel of Racing's Triple Crown, and it's here at beautiful Saratoga. Good luck.